How many times have we looked at something that happened in our life and immediately called it a disaster? And how many times did that same disaster later turn out to be a hidden blessing? The truth is, we are never wise enough to judge life in the moment it arrives. What feels like a loss today might be preparing us for something far greater tomorrow. But most of us don't have the patience to wait and see. Today's story is about a simple farmer who understood something that most of us struggle with our entire lives: the art of patience and trust in life's timing. While everyone around him celebrated too quickly or grieved too deeply, this farmer stayed calm through every storm and every sunrise. And by the end of his journey, life proved him right in the most powerful way. So watch this video till the end, because this story might just change the way you look at every good and bad thing that happens in your life. A long time ago, at the foot of the lush green Aravalli Hills, in the heart of India, there lay a small village. It was surrounded by golden wheat fields, mango orchards, and the gentle sound of a river that flowed nearby. Life in the village was simple. People worked the land, shared stories under banyan trees, and measured their worth by what they owned. Among the villagers lived a farmer. He was not rich. He was not powerful. His house was small, built from mud and dry grass. He lived there with his wife, a kind and patient woman, and their only son, a strong young man who worked beside his father every single day. The family didn't have much. They had a small piece of land, an old ox that helped them plow, a loyal dog that guarded their home at night, and a couple of cows that gave them just enough milk. But there was one thing this family treasured above all else: a horse. He was tall, strong, and strikingly handsome, with a shining coat and sharp, intelligent eyes. The farmer had raised him since he was a young colt, and over the years, the horse had become more than just an animal. He was part of the family. Now, what made this farmer truly different from everyone else in the village was not what he owned. It was how he lived. No matter what happened, good or bad, the farmer never lost his calm. When the rain didn't come and the crops were dry, he didn't curse the sky. When the harvest was good, he didn't boast. He simply worked, prayed, and accepted whatever life brought him with a quiet, unshakable peace. No matter what happened, good or bad, he would simply say, "Who knows what is good and what is bad? Only time will tell. Everything happens for a reason. Be patient, be thankful, and keep your faith strong." The villagers could never understand him. They thought he was odd. Some even whispered that he was a fool. One day, word about the farmer's beautiful horse reached a wealthy merchant who often traveled through the region. The merchant came to the village and was stunned when he saw the horse. He immediately offered the farmer a sack of gold coins, enough money to feed his family for years. The villagers gathered around, their eyes wide with excitement. They whispered to each other, "He would be a fool to refuse such an offer." But the farmer gently shook his head and said, "This horse is not just an animal to us. He is part of our family. I cannot sell him to any cost. This horse is not for sale." The merchant raised his offer twice, but the farmer stood firm. The merchant left disappointed, and the village erupted with gossip. "What a foolish man," they said. "He could have been the richest farmer in the village. Now he will remain poor forever. He had his one big chance and he threw it away." But the farmer said nothing. He simply returned to his field and continued his work. A few days later, something shocking happened. One morning, the son went to the stable and found it empty. The rope was untied. The horse was gone. No one knew how or where he went. The farmer and his son searched everywhere, through the fields, along the riverbank, into the edges of the forest and the neighboring villages. But there was no sign of the horse anywhere. The villagers shook their heads and clicked their tongues. "We told him so," they said. "He should have taken the merchant's coal when he had the chance. Now he has nothing, no horse and no money. What a terrible loss." The son was heartbroken that evening. He sat beside his father and said, "We have lost our most valuable companion. How can you be so calm?" The farmer placed his hand on his son's shoulder and said softly, "My son, what looks like a loss today may not be a loss tomorrow. Don't be so quick to call this a disaster. There is good and bad in everything. Only time can reveal the true nature of what happens to us. Everything happens for a reason. Be patient, be thankful, and keep your faith strong." The son did not understand his father's words, but he trusted him and tried to be patient. Then, about a week later, something unbelievable happened. Early one morning, as mist still covered the fields, the son heard the sound of hooves. He ran outside and could not believe his eyes. The horse had returned, and behind him followed 5 wild horses, strong, untamed, and magnificent. The horse had found a herd in the forest and brought them home. The village buzzed with excitement. The same people who had called the farmer foolish now called him the luckiest man alive. "Now he has 6 horses. He will be wealthier than the merchant himself." But the farmer simply smiled and said quietly to his son, "Do not celebrate too soon, my son. We do not yet know what this will bring. Let us not judge this moment either. Only time will tell." Eager to train the wild horses, the son mounted one of the strongest stallions the very next day. The horse bucked and twisted violently, throwing him to the ground. There was a sickening crack. His right leg was broken in 2 places. The village healer rushed to their home. He set the bone and wrapped it tightly. But he told the farmer's wife that the boy would need many weeks to recover and might always walk with a slight limp. Once again, the villagers whispered, "Those wild horses brought nothing but trouble," the villagers said. "The farmer's greed for more has cost his son dearly." Lying in pain, the son looked at his father with heavy eyes and asked, "Was this meant to happen too?" The farmer sat beside him, just as calm as ever, and replied, "The same rain that floods the valley nourishes the forest, my son. Do not judge this moment either. Only time will tell. Everything happens for a reason. Be patient, be thankful, and keep your faith strong." Then, just 2 weeks later, the unthinkable happened. Sound of drums and trumpets echoed through the village. The king's soldiers rode in with a royal decree. A war had broken out on the northern border, and every able-bodied young man was to be drafted into the army immediately. There were no exceptions, no excuses. One by one, the young men of the village were taken, strong sons who had never held a sword, boys who had only ever known the plow and the harvest. Mothers wailed. Fathers stood in stunned silence. The village felt as though its heart had been ripped out. But when the soldiers came to the farmer's door and saw his son lying on a cot with his leg bound in splints,